Too often, I see young women scared to speak up for what they want, for themselves or in their careers. And I'm here to say that not only can you do it, but you should be doing it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Growth Marketing series. I'm Samantha McClure, Director of Marketing at Chrometrics, and today I'm interviewing Hannah Dudeck, our marketing specialist. And thanks for joining me today, Hannah. Before we get started, tell me a little bit about yourself and your career.
I'm Hannah Dudeck, the marketing specialist here at Chrometrics, like you just said. So thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here today with you, Samantha. Over the course of my career in marketing, I've been a marketing intern at a startup tech company. Then I had a stretch of consultant work beginning at a startup management consulting firm where I mostly ran social media calendars for clients. I did marketing consulting for a technology marketing agency, working with big names in tech like Amazon and Microsoft. And there I mostly did content creation, project management, and the occasional strategic insight here and there. Then I had a brief stint as a social media and brand manager for a law firm before making my way to the internal marketing team at Chrometrics. And now I have a hand in creating organic and paid social media content, assembling case studies for our business development team, and plugging in just wherever I can to drive leads for the business.
And we are so stoked to have you. And I'm really curious about what a defining moment in your career is, or what you feel like has shaped who you are today.
Yeah, I love that question. Just throwing that out there. When I was still pretty green, one of my previous jobs, the firm I worked for flew me out to San Diego to pitch a extension on a client that we had already been working with for the past year. And originally I was supposed to go with a more senior team member, but she had a family emergency and couldn't make it. And not only was this my first pitch, but it was the first time I had met with a client in person since most of my jobs had been remote. So I was absolutely shaking in my boots, so nervous that I could probably puke if I'm being honest with you. And I remember I even brought donuts to the meeting and forgot them in the lobby. So my client had to escort me all the way back through the building, back to the lobby to grab them. So not the best start. But anyway, I was doubting myself the entire time, wondering like, can I even do this? And I'm sure at first I was probably pretty awkward, but after I warmed up and got going, the pitch went pretty great. And we not only extended the program into the next year, but then doubled the amount of activities we were doing on that account. Obviously, that brought in more revenue for the agency I was working for. And I would say it's probably a defining moment just because I learned how to trust myself completely. And I knew I was fully prepared for that pitch. And the only thing getting in my way was myself, my own doubts. And someone that I once knew had told me, why wouldn't the best case scenario happen? And now I just roll with that. Why wouldn't the best case scenario happen?
I love that phrase and outlook. I think it's so true. I've seen myself and so many other women over the years just absolutely crush it and then feel like they didn't or they didn't trust themselves. I think that's such a key part in growing in your career is like finding that trust in your like self and your abilities. I love that. Have you faced any unique challenges specifically as a woman in our field or truly just throughout your career? And what did you do to overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Who hasn't? Especially as a young woman in my field, I've definitely run into scenarios where my thoughts, opinions, or expertise on a specific subject were kind of blown off. And of course, like that is so disheartening and pretty frustrating when something like that happens. And ultimately, in those moments, I just do my best to advocate for myself and back up what I'm saying with data or facts. But at the end of the day, I've kind of learned to pick my battles, and that being the squeaky wheel often doesn't get me very far, unfortunately. And it kind of feels that way, that you are being the squeaky wheel if you're the one like constantly bringing something up or interjecting in some way. And when people just make you feel small, it does make you feel like you need to like contract a little bit. But at the end of the day, people will take or leave what they want. And that's just kind of how I've left it and how I've moved through that.
I love that. Like, give your opinion, give your, point of view, and then people are going to take what they want. And hopefully, as you kind of grown that in your career, that people take you more seriously. We love having you here. So I'm excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
All right. So Talk to me about a project you've worked on that just makes you really, really proud.
Yeah, most recently this one. I gotta say, bringing women together to talk about the cool work we do and build a community is pretty rad. So I'm excited to see where the series goes and what it turns into. And the biggest plug I could make for this series is being here talking to you about it. So I'm just happy that we're making this come to fruition.
Yay, same. I think this is such a cool project to work on. And what makes you, wrapping up career talk, what makes you really excited about working in growth marketing and the marketing industry?
I'd have to say that the opportunities to push the limits of what's possible within the marketing industry as a whole. I get really excited seeing companies like Duolingo bring their mascot into their storylines and seeing Nutter Butter going absolutely feral on TikTok. I think that that is so much fun. And with technology and mass communication in 2025, you just never know what will actually resonate with your audience until you try it. So it's always kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing if it sticks, but with like a little bit of data and research mixed in. And I think that just kind of pushing the limits of what's possible in that way is always really fun and really interesting.
Totally. Throwing spaghetti at a target. Like, you know what you're trying to do, but like, what's going to stick up there? It's like, it's educated spaghetti throws. So I would love to talk a little bit about community and mentorship. What advice would you give to women looking to break into or advance within growth marketing or marketing in general?
Honestly, I would say just keep pushing. For every job application that you get a rejection letter from, fill out 10 more. You know, for every project that doesn't go the way you thought, take those learnings into the next one. I hold the maybe like somewhat silly belief or naive belief that timing is everything. And as long as you're working towards your goals, the opportunity will absolutely arise for you to succeed, even if it takes a couple of failures along the way. I definitely think that like the right time and the right moment will always come, especially if you're putting in the preparation into what you're wanting to do with your life.
Totally. Yeah, I think timing, like if you are preparing, you are ready for that moment when it comes and you can just kind of like grasp it. Awesome. What is something you would tell yourself or younger women in the industry?
I have a couple of things. First is don't discount yourself before others do. I often find myself sharing ideas and following it up with something like, maybe that's not what we're going for, or I don't know if that's right. And before I know it, I've talked myself and everyone in the room out of the idea. I've been working on presenting things more confidently and letting others figure out what they think before I put my negative thought into their brain. But like, that's a hard habit to break sometimes. And I often find myself falling back into it. And then kind of in the same vein, like advocate for yourself. If you think you deserve a promotion, talk to your manager or leadership, put together a list of reasons why you think you deserve it. There's really no harm at all in asking or making your needs or wants be known. And too often I see young women scared to speak up for what they want for themselves or in their careers. And I'm here to say that not only can you do it, but you should be doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's something really special about women advocating for themselves. You see it in male spaces a lot, and it's a good thing that they do that we should learn. They have no problem like talking about their wins. They are out there wearing Super Bowl rings and telling everybody that they're the winners. And we should be doing the same. We should be advocating for our wins. We should be showcasing our own wins, because if you can't highlight it, other people can't highlight it for you with you. So, be the catalyst in your career for yourself. And I think you'd be surprised how many people will jump on your advocate bandwagon with you.
Yeah, 100%. I want to highlight that so much because you're right. Like, oftentimes when they talk about their wins, it's seen as very positive. And sometimes women, we can get in our own heads about it because we don't want to come across as bragging or as being conceited or whatever. And we let that get in our own way of being our own advocates. So I 100% agree with you that it is maybe not necessarily a stigma against women put onto us by other people, but more so like an internal stigma that we have against ourselves.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like some sort of like social way that that was ingrained in us as we got older, but I totally agree. And I have seen so much benefit in people who are able to like highlight themselves. It just really brings attention to all the good things.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not doing it, who's going to? You
Yeah,
know?
exactly. So, what do you do to best support yourself in some difficult moments or stressful weeks?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially in this field. Things can get so fast moving, and sometimes it's kind of hard to like take a step away and, decompress and de-stress a little bit. For me, I try to set boundaries and carve out time for something that I love doing or spending quality time with like friends and family. It can be hard sometimes to find the separation between work and home, but the only way to truly disconnect the two is by creating intentional moments to do so, right? I also really like to get out of my head and into my body. So sometimes that can look like going on a run around the neighborhood, or honestly, more often than not, having a full blown dance party in my kitchen. I would definitely say that you'd be surprised what screaming Taylor Swift at the top of your lungs can do for your psyche. For me, it is totally healing. And my husband and I will absolutely just like blast music and do dance parties when we're feeling particularly stressed. And I just think that that's such a fun way to decompress a little bit.
Totally. I love it. Sing a little bit like the man, Taylor Swift, like just scream that out there. That is so cathartic in certain ways. I absolutely love that. I also would say that creating boundaries was something I wish that I learned early on. And as a manager, I hope that we advocate for boundaries. There is this place in remote work that you don't leave the office anymore. It is a lot harder, like you said. And so I think that the more you can figure out what boundaries work for you and work for your business and your career. We've talked about how some people really like to work at night or in the mornings, and maybe that's when you're most creative. So like maybe it doesn't look like clocking in right at 9 a.m. Maybe you clock in a little later, but you're going to log back in after dinner because your creative juices are flowing. I think finding the time that works for you and the place where you feel good about setting those boundaries where you can kind of get out of work is so important.
100%. And I'm doing that today. Around 3:30, I'm going to go on a run and do that while the sun is still out and shining. And then I'll probably take a shower and then hop back online to edit videos or create content. And I think that's one of the joys about remote work. And then the other kind of downside to that is knowing when to turn it off.
Yeah, because you're always accessible. Like you can always be working, you can always be looking out on LinkedIn, you can always be doing something. And so it is a conscious decision to like step back and not do those things too. Totally. So if you could create one initiative to uplift other women in growth marketing, what would it be?
Great question. I don't know if it's so much of an initiative, but I would like to see more conversations happening around what we as women go through behind closed or even sometimes open doors at our jobs. Not only the challenges, but also our wins. I think the more we share, the more community we build, the more we learn from one another, and then the stronger we are. And with remote work, sometimes it can be hard to open up those doors to share. A lot of us don't want to hop on a meeting and then, well, I say a lot of us. Some of us love hopping on a meeting just to chat, but sometimes, people just don't have the bandwidth for that. And so figuring out a way to have these conversations and have these connections, even in the midst of remote work, I think is really important.
Yeah, I totally agree. One thing I've started doing at the end of last year and this year is I go once a week and co-work with other women, and not in my company, not even in, the same industry. And it's so nice to be able to bounce ideas or struggles or things off of other people who I respect and, value their opinions in kind of that face-to-face environment outside of our remote work environment. And then I think there's so many unique ways that you can connect with people. I agree. I love hearing everybody's stories and struggles and what's worked for them and what they're excited about. It's really fun to like rally behind other people. I feel like it gets my own excitement going about things that I've been working on too.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. So let's wrap it up with what's next for you in your career? What excites you about the future? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, open-ended question for sure. What's next for me is probably continuing growing within my role here at Prometrics, taking on more responsibilities, likely taking some online classes to develop my skills even further. And for the future, I'm really excited about strengthening my own confidence and knowledge in this field, and hopefully one day mentoring other folks to help advance their careers too.
You're not leaving ever. So
No.
no, I'm just kidding. Awesome. I really appreciate the time that you took today, and I'm excited for everybody else to get to hear this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's it. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.